Hey guys, it's Saleh. In the previous video, I created a swing trend following strategy, which was performing well, but in this video, I'm gonna use the optimization mode of Jesse, which uses the genetic algorithm to improve the results that we already had. Also, we're gonna have a giveaway, so make sure to stick until the end of the video so you won't miss it. Alright, let's get into it. So this was the performance that we were getting. This was our P&L, the number of trades we did, and the max drawdown, and the Sharpe ratio. Everything looks okay, but let's see if we can improve it. So I'm gonna open our strategy. Now we're using, I believe, 4 indicators for this strategy. The ADX has a threshold of 25, and I'm not passing any period number for it, and that's intentional. And we're using 3 EMAs, and we're using the ATR for setting our stop loss and for setting our initial take profit. All right, let's begin. So instead of 25, I'm gonna write self HP, which is a dictionary, so I will give it a name, ADX threshold, and then I will come down here and define a new method called hyperparameters. And in it, I'm gonna return a list of dictionary values. The dictionary has a name, it has a type, it has a default value, and what the copilot is missing, it will also have a min and max values. Now for ADX, the type of int is fine. The default value of 25 is also fine. The minimum of 10 and max of 50. It actually looks perfect. Okay, so let's go back and continue. We also have EMA values. So instead of this one, I'm gonna say self HP E1 period. I'm gonna have E2 period and E3. Now I will go here and add, okay, so this looks fine, but it's not perfect. So the default value for the E1 was 21. That means the min of it should not be 2, it should be 10, the max should be 40, that's fine. The default for the second period was 50, so now I don't like this min. So I'm gonna set the min to 40 and the max to 70. And for the third one, we had the period of 100. So the min would be around 70 and the max would be 130. Okay, this looks good. Next, we have the ATR value, which we were using initially for setting our stop loss. Now, we were multiplying the ATR value by 2. So instead of 2, I will say self HP stop ATR. I'm gonna copy this because I'm also using it elsewhere. So here, and also here, and also here. And now I will define a new value called stop ATR. The type of it is still int. Actually, for this one, I don't want the type of it to be int because we don't just want it to be 2 or 3 or 4. Values such as 2.1, 2.2, these are actually perfect for this use case. So instead, I will give it the type of float. The default is 2. The minimum is 1 and the max is 5. Actually, 5 is a bit too much for my stop loss. I don't like it. 3.5, I believe, is like good enough for me. And we also need another one for the take profit. I'm gonna copy this and paste it also here. And I will add another one. The default is 2. Actually, no, the default was 3 in our strategy. And the minimum of 1 and maximum of, let's say, 4.1. Actually, let's set it to 5. Okay, so this is good. So for some indicators, such as the EMA, I am replacing the period number with the hyperparameter, which we're going to optimize. But for some others, such as the ADX or the ATR, I don't do that. Why? Simply put, the more hyperparameters you use in your strategies, the more you try to optimize every single part of it, the more it is likely that your strategy is going to end up being overfit, which means it might perform well in backtests, but in live trading, it won't. So that's always a risk of optimization, and we want to avoid that. Other than that, I like to be able to understand my strategy to the fullest. I don't want it to be a lot of differences when I was trading it manually or when I was trading it with my bot. And I almost never change the default parameters on TradingView when I'm trading. So when I'm turning my strategies into algorithms, I want to keep doing the same thing. But I want to emphasize that if you are a beginner with Jesse, if you're just getting started, don't try to optimize every single part of your strategy. And also never use the optimization mode for turning a negative strategy into a profitable one. Only use it to improve your existing strategies, all right? Especially if you're a beginner, if you haven't even executed, let's say 100 backtests with Jesse yet, don't start with the optimization mode, because you're gonna face lots of issues and chances are you will just get exhausted and stop trading altogether. And I don't want that happening to you. Okay, so this looks really good, but I also want to do one more thing because I think it will have some educational value. So here we were using the current price for the entry of our strategy. We were using a market order to open our positions. But you might wonder what we were using a limit order. Well, so what if instead of using the current price, I said self price plus, well, I say plus because this is the go short method. So instead of some kind of number. Now, to make this a dynamic number to work for every other strategy, I'm going to use again the ATR indicator. So I will say TA ATR and I'm going to multiply it by a hyperparameter value. I will call it entry ATR, and actually let's copy this and go to go long, but this time because it's for a long position, instead of adding we will be subtracting. Now I will come down and add another value. Now the default of it is set to 1 actually. Okay, so that's good for the default, but the minimum I want it to be very low, such as this, or even lower than that, and the maximum could be, yeah, let's say 2. So now we are using a limit order to enter our positions. Actually, so let's run another backtest for this strategy to first make sure that it actually works and we're not making any syntax error. And second, because I want to see what this change that I just made had in our numbers. So we were getting 128% with the max run of 15 and with a Sharp of 1.47. Okay, so we made significantly less than before, and the max drawdown is even worse. Okay, so this is the number we're getting right now, but it doesn't matter much. So let's go to the optimization page now, and everything is fine except the strategy. So I'm gonna choose the correct one. As for the duration, you have to notice that it's a bit different than the backtest mode. So for instance, when you are backtesting and your duration is set to since the beginning of 2022 and up until, let's say, 2023, it will be for 1 year, right? But when you set the same number for the optimization, it will split those candles into a training and a testing set. And the exact number is actually, it will use the 85% of it for training and the other 15% for testing. Also, it's best if you leave some time out for the cross-validation period. Now, if these numbers don't make sense to you right now, that's okay. I'm going to explain it later when we get the results. So for this one, I'm going to set the beginning to 2022 and the ending to 2024. Now this optimal number of trades number here is actually quite important. Now, what does it mean? So if I run a backtest with this duration, this is the result that I will get. Now, the number of trades that we're executing is 53. So in the optimization for the same period, you should set the total number of trades to approximately similar number. Now, why do we have this setting in the first place? Well, the reason is, imagine if your strategy during like 1 year, it executed 3 trades, but all of them were in profit, which means the win rate of your strategy is going to be 100%. Is that a good strategy? Well, on paper, it seems perfect, right? It has a 100% win rate, but in reality, it's not great because 3 trades is just too low. It doesn't have statistical significance. In other words, you're not going to be confident trading that strategy. You're not going to be confident with the with any number that or chart that you're seeing, because there's a low chance that in the future the same thing is going to happen. But if your strategy was executing, let's say 150, 200 or whatever, you will be much more confident in its metrics, right? So with that in mind, we want to tell Jesse what would be an optimal number of trades for this strategy. Now, the number that you pick, it will have to do something with the duration of the backtest and the time frame of your backtest. And that's why this isn't a hard-coded number and you have to give it as a setting. Now, in this example, we're trading the 4 hours time frame, which is a big one. and the number of trades that we were getting in our backtest was around 53. So in the optimization mode, I will set this number to something such as 50, which it already is. So this is good for me. But if I wanted this strategy to execute more trades just to be more confident in its results, yes, I could have increased this number to something such as 70 or something. All right, let's bring it back to 50. Everything else looks fine. Also, when you are running the optimization mode, make sure in the settings that firstly you set the CPU cores to a number that you can afford. So my machine has 8 cores, so I'm gonna set this to 6. You can choose the fitness function. The default, which is the sharp, is fine for me. The warm-up candles is very important. So if in my backtest, for instance, I was using, let's say, a bigger number such as 400 candles, then I should make sure that in the optimization, I also have the same number. So this is really important. And as for the exchange, you can set the trading fee. And right now, this trading fee is set for spot trading, not for trading futures. So if I go back to the backtest section and look at the fees for Binance Perpetual Futures, is set to this number. But on the optimization, it's actually higher. So let's change this. And the starting capital of 10,000 is fine. The type of it is futures by default. The leverage mode is set to cross, and the leverage is set to 3. Again, make sure these numbers are the same that you were using for your backtest. All right, everything else looks fine, and we should be able to start the optimization. Oh, so I forgot one thing. Let's also enable the debug mode and the fast mode for this strategy. Okay, let's run it again. Notice that it's telling me that in 21 minutes it will finish. Well, here's the thing. The optimization mode, or let's call it the generating algorithm, it has 2 phases. The first phase is for generating the initial population. Now, what does it mean? It means it is creating some numbers, some hyperparameters randomly, and no one knows if those are going to be good numbers or bad numbers. And that's what's happening right now. So in 21 minutes, we're gonna finish doing that. In the second phase, we're going to use those population and we're going to breed the numbers that are good, because that's how the genetic algorithm works. It breeds the good DNAs and it tries to make even better babies, or in our case, that would be better results for our strategy. So that's why we have 2 phases. So in about 20 minutes, I will come back and we're gonna have another table. But even in here, you can see we have the average strategy execution time, which is useful. And here's the information about the strategy you're running. This is the population size, the number of iterations, and the solution length. And the more hyperparameters that you add to your strategy, these numbers are going to exponentially increase. So that's also another reason why you shouldn't use as many hyperparameters as you can. Just try to keep it as minimum as possible. Another reason is that your optimization sessions are just going to finish much faster. It's been around 3 hours since we started this optimization session, and it's been 31% of the second phase of the optimization session. However, the thing about optimization is that you don't have to wait for it to reach 100%. Sometimes you can start playing around with the results as soon as you see some numbers that you actually like. And also, sometimes you just wait and wait and wait, but after a certain point, you don't see any improvements anymore. So, especially for the sake of this tutorial, because I want to continue my recording, I'm gonna use the results that I have so far. But in reality, you probably want to wait for it to reach to 60% or 70%, or you want to try out all the numbers. After it's at 30%, try the number, see if you like it, and then at 60%, and then compare them and see which one works better. So here, these are the type of results that we get. Now notice there's a rank, which isn't really important, but usually the best one comes first. We have the DNA, which is really the result that we're gonna use later. We have the fitness number, which is what it's ranking them based on. And then we have these numbers that are really useful to us. We have the training versus testing win rate. So this one is the win rate that the backtest is getting using this DNA on the training period. But on the testing period, it's getting this win rate. Now, these are the total trades that were executed. So in the training period is 36, on the testing period is 6, and these are the P&L for those 2 backtests. Now, what's the difference between training and testing? Well, the training period is what Jesse is using to improve itself based on the metric that it is using, which is this fitness number here. But the testing number, it has no effect in that, but for our eyes, it's really useful. So why do we have it there? Because if you see a DNA that's performing extremely well in the training period, but in the testing it's doing horribly, then you can just ignore that one. And that's also why I said the ranking doesn't really matter much, because the ranking is only considering the training period. So this one looks good. It is our number 1 rank, but the total trades is actually lower than the second option. But nonetheless, let's begin with it. So I'm gonna copy this DNA here and go back to my editor, and I will add a new function called DNA, and it should return simply a string, which is the DNA we just copied. Okay, so let's go back to the backtesting page. Now, these were the results that we were getting. And remember that in the previous video, our results was actually better than this. And this is because of that change I made last minute to open positions using a limit order, because I also wanted to test that one. But anyway, so this is the number we have, 5% PNL and minus 22% max drawdown. So let's open a new tab and rerun the same backtest, but this time using that DNA. Okay, so this is the number we're getting. The PNL is at 97% and the max drawdown is at minus 8%. So that's a significant improvement. But here's the thing, so far we had the training period and the testing period. Those were the two that the optimization session was running, and we were seeing the numbers here. But what I do to make sure my strategy isn't overfit is to use a third period, which is called a validation period. So what I mean by that is, for the period of this optimization session, we chose since the beginning of 2022 up until 2024, just the first day. So it hasn't been backtested on since 2024 up until, let's say, last month. So let's go back to backtest and execute another backtest since the beginning of 2024 up until the 7th month. And just to make sure we are running it without the DNA, I will comment this. Now let's run this. And this is the number we're getting. Okay, 29% profit, minus 13% max drawdown. Okay, so now this time let's run it with the DNA. Again, 29% minus 13. Now we're getting 21% minus almost 7%. So the profit number came down a bit, but the max drawdown also came down. And if you remember from my previous video, I mentioned that when the max drawdown comes down, it allows you to add more position, which will end up making us a bigger PNL number. So I'm not sure if I can say this is a worse strategy than the other one, but anyways, let's just continue because I want to test other DNA numbers, because this one was not making that many trades and I wasn't super happy about that. Now this one is making more trades and it seems to have a better PNL, at least in here. So let's copy this one. Let's go back to backtest. 97 minus 8. 107% minus 9 and 7. Okay, so it does look better, but also let's test it on the validation period. 21 minus 7. 19 minus 11. So you see, even though it got better in our training and testing period, it did not get better in our validation period. So that's why I won't use this DNA. So let's carry on. So this one is executing actually the most number of trades, and that's something I really like. So let's copy this one, go back to backtest. 107% minus 9. 95% and minus 10%. Not bad, but let's see how it does the validation period. 24% minus 7%. Okay, so it's doing actually really well in the validation period. So far, I think it's the best one. Let's see if we have any one more interesting. Okay, so look at this one. It's actually really good. The win rate of it is lower than these ones, but it is executing more trades and the P&L is actually better. Okay, so you see it jumped. That's because a new iteration of the optimization session was just done and these are the new results. But luckily I copied it before it happened. So let's move on. $95 minus 10. 121 max return minus 12%. So it looks actually quite good. 24% minus 7. Oh, it's actually wetting the bed here. It's really bad. Okay. Let's go back. Keep looking. Let's try this one. $107 minus 9. 19% minus this. Okay, so I think this one had the best numbers so far. Minus 7, 24, 95% minus 10. Okay, yeah. So I think I really like this one. So again, this is what we had before the optimization session, and this is what we have after. And just to make sure, we also ran it on the validation period and it's also performing well there. So before I forget, there's something really important, that when you run a backtest using a DNA string, you will get a new section here called hyperparameters. It will tell you the DNA and the values that have been used for this backtest. So remember the hyperparameters we defined here. So you might be asking, okay, so in this backtest, what number is being used for the ADX threshold? And if you go here, it's 44. What number is being used for the first period is 35, 44, 80, and the sub ATR is at 1, and the take profit ATR is at 1.6, and that entry ATR, which I define at the last second, is at 0.06. So this can also be really handy and teach us a lot. So for example, I didn't even think that a very short sub ATR number would be this much helpful, but you can clearly see that it actually is. Okay, so just as a reminder, these results were just after 34% of the progress bar. If I come back in, let's say 3 or 4 hours, we're gonna get completely new results and hopefully better ones. But I think I made my point for the video, and that is, if you believe in your strategy, you know how it's working, and you just want to improve some of the parameters of it, or if you have a setup that you know in theory should work, but in the backtest just isn't working. So an example of that is that last minute limit order that I added for our entry, because I think it makes sense that just wait for a small pullback to enter your position, but the numbers weren't really good. And that's because, yes, the logic of it was good, but the exact amount that I was using just wasn't good. In these type of scenarios, the optimization session can be really, really helpful. Now, before I leave, we're gonna have a giveaway. A random person who likes this video, posts a comment, and subscribes to the channel is going to win 1 million bonk token. Alright, it's time to pick the winner of the last video. And the winner is... oh, it chose me.
Number nine, Jim Halbert. What? Are you kidding?
Okay, so let's pick another one. Right, so it says, really liking these strategy videos. Thank you so much for your comment. Please reach out to me so that I can send you your bonk tokens. Thanks for watching and happy trading.